pretty much up until their last two games against a Philadelphia team that was minus James Harden and a Golden State Warriors team that was not only minus Steph Curry, they were minus Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, still James Wiseman. The Miami Heat over the past week have not looked like an incredible team. However, they're still the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. They still have a pretty good lead on that number one seed. And last night, when they had their little fight between Jimmy Butler, Udonis Haslem, and Eric Spoelstra, I think a lot of people are going to look at that and see it as something that is a negative for that team, but really, that was one of the best things that could have happened for that team last night. When you see somebody like Udonis Haslem, who, yes, he doesn't play, but is well respected not only within the Miami Heat organization, as a person, as a player, as a basically player coach at this point in his career, even though nobody would fuck with Udonis Haslem on or off the court. He, at this point in his career, as one of the highly regarded players that also is kind of side jobbing as a coach. So when you see him, Eric Spoelstra, fighting with Jimmy Butler, I think this is one of the few times where not only are people going to be not against Jimmy Butler, but they're not going to take his side. And I think his team is going to recognize that and saying, Jimmy, you were wrong in this moment. Because whether Jimmy Butler wants to admit it or not, and he probably doesn't want to admit it, maybe he does. I don't know Jimmy Butler in person, so I don't know. But he needed to get smacked in the face last night. And that's what last night was. Because you saw when Udonis Haslem stood up in front of him and said, I'll beat your ass right now. You saw it. I'm not saying that Jimmy Butler was scared. I'm saying that Jimmy Butler recognized in the moment, okay, I might be wrong here. Because when UD steps up and is saying shit like that, it has a different sort of tone than if Kyle Lowry is saying it, than if Markieff Morris is saying it. Hell, if even Jimmy Butler is saying something like that. When UD steps up and is saying things like that, and standing up for Eric Spoelstra and standing up for the team as a whole, I think that's a moment that the Miami Heat, and especially Jimmy Butler, is going to rally around. Now, they got their ass kicked last night by an undermanned Golden State Warriors team. They let Jordan Poole go for 30. He was shooting it damn near every single time he touched the ball in the second half. And not only was he shooting it, he was fucking making that shit. Even through all that, they're still the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. I think they have a game and a half up on the Milwaukee Bucks. And with 9 games left to go, they're still working in Victor Oladipo. They're going to try to start working in Markieff Morris, I'm sure, soon. They have everything in place right now to win a championship. And not only that, they have this underdog, not really underdog mentality, but they have a mentality to their team that not a lot of other teams in the NBA have. They're also being talked about right now as a team that if they get the 1 seed and they play the Brooklyn Nets in the first round, people are giving that series to the Nets. You don't have to tell me that people are thinking the Nets are going to win, because I wouldn't even have to look at any videos, wouldn't even have to look at any blogs online to know that people are taking the Nets in that series. I'm not saying everybody. I'm saying that majority of the people are probably taking the Nets in that series, especially now that Kyrie Irving is going to be able to play in the home games. Just off the fact that they have Kevin Durant, they are viewed as the favorite in that series. And I think that's something that does play into the Miami Heat's hands. Last year when they lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round, that was a team, I think, that was tired of playing basketball so much. You have to remember, the Miami Heat last year were the team that played more than any other team the year before that when they made it to the finals in the bubble. They were playing well into September. They only had a couple of months off until the next season started. It just looked like a team, when they got to that playoff series against the Bucks, it looked like a team that didn't really want to be playing basketball at the moment. And I'm not saying that they don't like basketball. I'm not saying that they are a bad team. That's not what I'm saying at all. People who play basketball understand what I'm saying. When you do it and do it and do it and do it over and over and over and over and over again, you get kind of tired of it after a certain point. And especially in that series when they were getting their ass kicked, I think they were ready for a couple of months off. I think Jimmy was ready for some time off. I think Bam was ready for some time off. I think Tyler Hero. I think the rest of that team was ready for some time off. Now you add to that team a Kyle Lowry. Now you add to that team a PJ Tucker. You still have other guys around this team that are vital members of that team, like a Udonis Haslem, like a Victor Oladipo who's coming back from his injury, like a Markieff Morris who, again, is coming back from injury, like a Duncan Robinson who is one of the best shooters in the NBA. Last night's little scuffle between UD, Eric Spoelstra, and Jimmy Butler was nothing more than a rallying point. Because you saw, even though they still lost that game, after they had that little scuffle, whatever you want to call it, I'll call it this. It was just a moment. It was a moment for the Miami Heat. And it's a moment they're going to look back on when they're, in the playoffs. If they do win a championship this year, they're going to be looking back on that moment when UD stepped up and told Jimmy Butler, I'll beat your ass right now. That's a moment that they're going to look back on if they have a title in their hands as the moment that turned their season and their playoff hopes around.